All right. So, our guest, he spent 8 years in the NFL, knows a thing or two when it comes to facing adversity, not to mention winning it also all together as a team and as champions. And so, joining us here up and on the show to give us his feedback and from his experiences, former NFL corner Nolan Carroll, he comes on up and onto the show. Well, Nolan, I mean, you've experienced this, coming up and into the league, right? And everybody comes from the bottom and work their way up and into the top. I mean, it's kind of got to be very well said when it comes to Sheduer Sanders' situation because Cleveland, I mean, they got all the quarterbacks right now to see who's going to be the guy to start week one. I think it's just safe to say when you are just as an average person, when you are there on the spotlight and you're ready to prove yourself, you just got to go out and have fun and go be yourself and prove to people why you deserve and belong here in the NFL, right?
Yeah, I just think it comes down to really honestly, Shedeur just has to play the game. He's got to let the game come to him. He can't try and outplay Flacco, and I don't even think they're playing. I think Flacco's sitting. Gabriel's got the hamstring injury, and Kenny Pickett's also sitting, and it's Tyler Huntley and him. So he's going to get a bulk of the snaps during this game against the Carolina Panthers. And this thing he has to do is just now he's in total control to be as free as he wants to be, like he was when he was playing in Colorado. And I think that's the best thing. He's just been so slandered ever since he got drafted, and just coming into a camp, he's a fifth-round pick, but yet you're reporting on him like he's a top 10 pick. So just the dissection of his everyday life, his every throw, his individual drills, that takes a toll on you. And for him, I think he's finally happy to just go out and play, knowing that he's going to be starting the game. He's probably going to get a full half, if not a little bit more. They just signed Tyler Huntley like a couple of days ago, so he doesn't know the playbook all the way. So it gives him a great opportunity to really get the bulk of the game and show the nation who he is, because that's going to be the highlight game of the preseason come tomorrow. So the biggest thing is to just do what he's been doing. The media will always try and this is their job during camp, is to always dissect every single thing. But I think the best thing for him is he has been practicing well. He's been practicing well not only against his teammates, but also when they had joint practices with the Carolina Panthers. He's been doing that as well. So just putting it together is his biggest thing on Friday. And, who knows what's going to happen. They got 6 quarterbacks if you can include Deshaun Watson. So it's just a circus. His biggest thing is making sure that he's putting himself in the best position possible to either be the starter, understanding how to be a great backup, or if he's going to get traded, at least raise that value, because anything can happen. And especially with them, you never know with the Cleveland Browns. They're kind of unorganized. So if he plays well, I think he'll start to get more interest because they see him as a quality backup if something were to happen to somebody around the league. And you never know. It's the first preseason game for most guys, so you never know what's going to happen. For the next month leading up into the season.
Yeah. No. Well said. Absolutely. I do want to get into the bulk of it. So let's start with the Miami Dolphins. To me personally, this has to be the year, Nolan, where everything has to come together for them. I feel like Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, they're fighting for their jobs. And I think initially, we know what the Teron Armstead thing with him retiring was kind of a hit. So I'm not sure with the left tackle what that's going to look like. But I am a bit curious about the defense because to me, Nolan, I'll just say it like this. I mean, I've been to Miami before going on vacation. It's sunny, bikini season 24/7. And the Dolphins really have a lot of speed. They're like that Lamborghini that you'll drive around on the freeways, and they're built for that. But sometimes I want to see a little more of that brute strength in defense where you're physical, you're fighting for every down, you're fighting for a possession. So, I mean, for the Dolphins, this has to be the year that they got to get this right and at least punch their ticket in the playoffs because the AFC, it's wildly exciting. And so, this is where these guys really have to come together in this, right?
Yeah, the window to get to the playoffs for the Dolphins keeps getting slimmer. For them, the hardest thing, honestly, is finding the defensive mindset to go out there and play well every single week. And for them in the back end, they got rid of all their starters and they had 2 guys that just got injured the first couple of days of camp. So they're looking to find their identity in the back end. I'm not too worried about the front 7. I think those guys will be pretty good. I know they had some injuries last year. We were limping across the finish line, but ultimately this all comes down to Tua. Tua is the one that makes his entire offense go, and it's been very rare. I haven't really seen this as much, other than maybe Aaron Rodgers or maybe Tony Romo before he got hurt. But when an offense is tailored around the quarterback, to his specifics, to his knowledge, to his checks, that's Tua all the way. It's groomed for him. That's why there's so much speed all over the place. And you really identify it. Yes, you got Tyreek. Yes, you got Waddle. But they have a great running game as well. So stable the backs they have, even though Mostert is now departed. I mean, still got guys. The best thing is to make sure you keep Tua protected. I think when he was in camp, he's just on fire. And he has a different mindset now. And I think he understands a sense of urgency as well, too, because he's never really been this vocal. All the years that I've just being a Dolphins alum and being a part of the team, you never really seen him be that vocal as far as progressing that team to the next level. It's always been, can you produce? Or, how is your concussions? How is your health? Should you sign that contract? It's always been those type of questions. And, now he's getting on Tyreek Hill to be more accountable and being a team leader. Now he's getting on his own line. Now he's working better with Coach McDaniel's and understanding, hey, what do I need to do to be better with my team? Not necessarily producing stats, because we see he can do that. So the main thing for him is understanding not to be hurt. Stay on the field, be efficient. You're going to have to fight Buffalo. You're going to have to win that division through Buffalo. But also, too, you also have to compete with the Patriots. Who knows how they're going to be, but they have improved. And then the Jets will figure out how that's going to go. If Justin Fields is going to be the guy he was when he was in Pittsburgh in those first 4 games, that's why the Jets signed him, because they feel like he has that potential. So it's just more of, they have to win the division first before they think about competing against Kansas City, trying to compete against San Diego, trying to compete against Houston. And the biggest thing is, let's try and win this division. Let's at least go 4-2 in the division. Let's see if we can win 10, 11 games. Let's position ourselves so that when we do have to play Kansas City, we got to play San Diego, LA Chargers now, if you get that confused. At least they have some type of home field advantage if they can, because the biggest thing that I see with, I forgot to mention Cincinnati Bengals as well, that whole AFC North, the biggest thing is understanding home field advantage. And Miami does not play well in the cold. And most of the teams that are very well are in the cold. So I think for them is to try and win the division, be seated high enough to where they get home field advantage. They have at least one game at home. And then from there, you see what happens. I think if they can just put on a string of good games and continue to stay in the top. And, when it comes down for those top matchups, because they have some pretty good teams that they're playing this year out of conference, if they can do well, they position themselves with more confidence and ultimately be able to get over that hump of trying to beat one of those teams from the AFC North or AFC West or even AFC South. Who knows? But they are in position. But, the one thing I do know about potential is potential always gets beat. And Miami always has the potential, but they've never been able to put it together. So answering your question, yes, this is a pivotal year for them. And if they can't produce, honestly, I just don't see Mike McDaniel being there for the entire season if things start to go awry. I think if they lose 3 or 4 games, you start questioning upper management. But, if they can get it together and do what they need to do and execute consistently, I think they'll be pretty good this year.
I agree. So let's shift to the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. This roster from top to bottom, and just the management in itself, is just so well run. Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. These guys, professionals, they understand it and they know what they're trying to build.
Yeah.
Last year, I'd said this on my show, was when I watched Quinyon Mitchell play as well as he did coming out of Toledo, I went on the record. I said, this guy reminds me of when Tariq Woolen came in as a late rounder and he was just a ball hawk. He was everywhere. He got great coverage, a guy that, really, really read the receivers one-on-one. And then you pair him up with someone like Cooper DeJean. And it's like this Eagles secondary, and even just playing alongside with it. You've played on a really great defense, even in your tenure there in Philly. But, this is a strong culture, and they're all about physicality. They're all about getting turnovers. What did you think of that secondary and the defense? Because to me, they ended up getting a lot of pressures in that Super Bowl. And then not to mention, they were fighting for every possession to keeping the ball on their side. So it allowed Saquon, Jalen Hurts, and everybody else to do their job. What did you think of that defense from last year and then coming into this year?
Yeah, I think the defense was very impressive. I mean, the thing that I see on defense, and when you watch film, and when I used to watch film, was how guys were flying around to the football. What was their tenacity? What was their pursuit like? What was their communication like? And I did an interview last year about them, and the one thing that I noticed with Cooper and Quinn is they were communicating pre-snap. Like guys were constantly communicating, and it's hard for young guys. I know, especially for me, if I was getting locked in, I'm locked in. Sometimes you forget to communicate, but it was just across the board. And, they had vets that were just helping CJ, big play Slay. I mean, Blankenship, making sure guys were just always communicating. And, I think this year is not going to be as much of a struggle because I believe those vets that were in the room for those couple of years, even I'm going back to 22, 23, and 24, when those guys were in the room and they had Ringo and, you have Blankenship, like those guys learned through CJ, they learned through Slay. And, even Malcolm, he comes back to the building too. So they're getting all this experience and all this knowledge. And, up front, it's always going to be the same. Guys that are getting after big, athletic, SEC type guys, that's what they still have. And knowing that as a defensive back, when you have guys that are just going to get after the quarterback, you begin to understand the ball has to come out. Whether it's a deep shot or whether it's quick game, it's got to come out. And the best thing that I would say about their defense has the linebacker play has been amazing. I mean, Vaughn was amazing, and now to get Campbell, draft him in the first round and pair him with Vaughn. Then you got Nolan Smith. I mean, the combination of young guys that they've been able to incorporate in this defense and get them playing early, the Eagles were looking long-term here. They weren't looking for an immediate fix. They knew it was going to take guys time to progress, and that's how Philly's always been. And I remember just dating it back when I was playing with Brandon Graham. He wasn't the starter on our defense. It was Trent Cole. And as Trent Cole was on his way out, he was always giving tips to BG. And eventually, BG ends up turning the corner. Trent Cole gives him the crown. And he's the guy that played for 15 years. And who did he give that to? Nolan Smith. So you look at that from that perspective and understand it is a lineage. And the way how he has set it up has been amazing. He doesn't just look at the athletic ability. He looks at how are you going to be as a teammate? How are you going to be in the organization? How are you going to be in the community? And those things always trickle down. And the great thing about Philly is they have definitive alpha leaders. You got A.J. Brown, Saquon, Jalen, Lane. They know they're the guys. And then, you got the secondary guys. I don't want to call them secondary, but in their own right, if you put them on another team, they're captains too. Cam Jurgens, Zach Bond. Like these guys could be team leaders. I'm not just talking about offense and defense. And I think that's what makes them special is the fact that they have so many important pieces and superstars on that team, and they only think about the team. And for them, the games just looked easy last year. It just looked like we know our mindset, we know our mentality. We're going to go out and be consistent. We have plays that you're not going to stop. We have players that you're not going to stop. And, that's just their mentality. And it's hard to beat a team like that. It's hard to play 4 quarters with a team that's ready to go into overtime at any given moment. So, when you have somebody that's willing to go beyond their limits and want to win, they said it, AJ said it 2 days ago, the Lombardi trophy is not loyal to anybody. And, Jalen saying, I don't wear my ring because that was last year's accomplishments. Their mindset is already on this year. And when you have people that can think that way, it's going to be very dangerous for somebody to stumble. But I will say this, you're going to get everybody's best shot every single week. And that's what's going to be the test for Philly. Everybody knew from 22 was a letdown. Going to 23, they ran out of gas. Going to 24 was redemption. Now 25, it's the target on your back. And how are you going to respond when you do have a game that's bad? How are you going to respond when you have a couple that's bad? So I think for them, that is the main thing is understanding last year was last year. We're going to get everybody's best shot no matter what the record is. And they come out of that in the tough NFC. I believe they can make another run again because they do have the most important piece. That's the quarterback, running back, and they have a great defense and a great coaching staff. And when you have that all together, they're playing as one. It's really tough to beat.
Yeah, they're going to continue to be a problem in the NFC, and I just enjoy watching them and just how tough they play. I do want to shift to Dallas. So, okay, this Micah Parsons situation is just really unique for a few reasons because I love Micah, and I think he's super explosive and somebody that is really a game changer up and on defense. Now, we know a lot of people bring out of like, well, playoffs a little different. I'm like, we'll get there. But, you've been around in this building. You've experienced Jerry Jones and the way that he's really kind of handled a lot of his business. Now, listen, I'm the kind that I'm like, if I'm at that age and I've enjoyed the accomplishments, I mean, Texas, they love their football, they love their oil. So I get it. It's tough. But, at the end of the day, I mean, both sides are going to come to an agreement up from here. But, I mean, after seeing TJ Watt get his money, Myles Garrett, and then who knows what's going to happen with this Trey Hendrickson situation, you're looking at Dallas and you're like, well, I'm paying Dak and I'm paying CD high premium money. It's going to be a little difficult to squeeze this one in, but I mean, how do you kind of how do you perspect this situation? And is this kind of something that will be solvable for Dallas and for both parties?
Yeah, it would be solvable if Jerry just stops talking. I think it's the best thing is for him to really sit down with Micah and his agent together and get this deal done. And from what I know, when Micah posted that post, it wasn't about the money. It was more of he wanted to be loyal to the fans. He wanted to be loyal to the team because that's the team that drafted him. And the way Jerry's playing hardball, it happens before. And he's done this. And he butts heads with guys. It's just what it is. And I think it's more about he doesn't want guys to be higher than the star. And when you look at the situation with Dak wasn't really in the media talking about getting a contract done. He just said it'll get done when it gets done, and it got done. And same thing with CD. It got done when it got done. And I think the thing with Micah is, yeah, you voice your frustration, rightfully so, because you want to be there. It's not like you want to leave or they're trying to force you out. It's just more it's business. And they're playing hardball, and this is really the first time he's experiencing this because he's a first-round pick. He didn't have to worry about it. And the way he was balling was just immediate success. And, the fact of them trying to say, well, in the playoffs, everybody's different in the playoffs, and they know you're the guy. So guess what? You're going to get doubled, and they're going to try and find something else. And they have a season of work to understand what your tendencies are, what they aren't, what worked well, what doesn't. So getting to the playoffs, you can say, hey, try and turn it on. But would you say that about Michael Strahan when he had UC Manura and he had all those guys? No. It's just, hey, if he's doing that, other guys got to step up. He can't do everything. He lines up everywhere on the defensive line. He even drops it back in coverage. So he does everything that you want him to do. And it's just, I'd say it's just like that. It's a circus there. And it starts with the head honcho, and he's the guy that calls the shots. But, hopefully if he truly wanted to win, honest in my opinion, he would have tried to find a way to pay him. He'd have tried to find a way to make it work behind the scenes, make Micah understand, look, I'm going to get it done. It's just whether it might be a salary cap, might not have the numbers. Number might be too high. And they're like, hey, look, we got to find a way to get through this. And it's more on us than it is you. But if you trust us, we'll get it done right. And we'll say that in the media. All those things could have been avoided. And I've seen it with guys that have had contract disputes and situations. It takes away from your game tremendously. And a guy like him where it's up in limbo, you're not going to play the same way. You're not going to be playing for the team. You're more so going to be playing to prove yourself to the owner that, hey, you need to pay me. And then when he's playing well, it's just going to go right back to the same thing. So it's going to be this culmination of just every single media circus all the time. Hey, you played well. Did you talk to Jerry? You played bad. This is what Jerry said. You played well again. Jerry, should he pay him? It's always going to be like that. And if they're losing, then it just makes it even worse. So I just think they got a lot of things that's going on behind the scenes. And I've seen it before. It comes down to hardball with him. And the biggest thing is just go out and prove your value. And if he's talking to other teams that want to trade him or they're looking for trade partners, at least make your value amazing. And then whatever team he does go to, if he does get traded, you just got to go all the way out and prove to the organization that they shouldn't have done that. But I don't think he's in the wrong in any stretch of the imagination because he's given us a timeline and he's been very patient. A lot of the questions about his contracts going at the end of last year, he's quietly just said, you know what, I'm working with Jerry. I'm trying to get it done. So hopefully they do get something done in the season. But, if that conversation has been severed, he just has to go and play at this point and prove his worth.
Yeah, 100%. And I can feel it, especially when you're watching teams like Philly and then Washington. And
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what the Giants look like, but the last thing you want to be is this situation don't get done. And then next thing you know, these teams are going to start climbing up and into the top. And then you're sitting there going, all right, we got to figure something out from here. An interesting question here, because we're going to see this kid. And from your experience at your position, This is going to be a unique situation to where none of us have ever seen this up and into the NFL, but Travis Hunter, wide receiver and corner. We've seen the amount of reps. Jacksonville came out with it about the reps he'll take at receiver and corner. We know it's challenging, and you kind of push your bodies to the limit. I mean, as athletes, you're making sure that you're physically and then mentally and emotionally healthy. But then at the same time, you're multitasking all around it. You're thinking offense, you're thinking defense. From even just plugging in your experience up from here and then just seeing this kid, what are kind of some things you point out from here? And can this be a situation that can work? And could it impact maybe future other college players that could step into this type of situation?
Yeah, I believe it can be done. And I look at guys that kind of paved the way before him, Charles Woodson, Champ Bailey. When I was playing, it was more Devin Hester. I know was drafted as a corner. They moved him over to receiver. But Antonio Cromartie, people forget, he played receiver for a few snaps. Deion Sanders, obviously, where it derived from. And then also, too, Patrick Peterson was the same way. So when it comes to that aspect of a defense preparing for a game, it's an extra player that you have to be alert for, that they're going to try and get the ball. But the also caveat to that is it's the snap count. They got to be aware of a snap count. And I don't know how many, people don't realize this, but plays in an NFL game, most of the time, on the high end, you might be getting 65 plays as a defense. And, if you go into overtime, might be a little bit higher. So think about it. If you're getting 65 and the offense has 65, that's close to 120 plays in an 18-week span. And you never know what's going to happen, but I do know it's a higher risk for you to get injured. It's a higher risk for you to get banged up. And that's the interesting thing to see is what the snap count is going to be for him. Is it going to get 15 on offense? Is it going to play everything on defense? Or is it only going to be 5 on offense? Like, you got to see, and I think that it's just the Jaguar staff, and I know they've talked about it before they drafted him, is just understanding where can we put this guy on offense to make him the most effective with as little plays as possible. Let's not try and put the whole game on his shoulders because they still have Trevor Lawrence. So, and they paid him a lot of money. So at the end of the day, the game has to ultimately go on his back, and they got to find a way to get the star players the ball. And, if you can do that in 10, 15 plays and he can still be effective on the defense and also get the ball back because he is playing corner, I mean, that's twofold. That's an impact player. And I think if you see it work well this year, there's going to be more people that are going to be looking for those guys. I coach here now in Jacksonville. I'm able to see them, but also, too, when I'm recruiting, guys are more two-way players than you believe. And I think because they have more confidence now, knowing that the load on them, they're able to do it. It's not just some type of fantasy where they hope they can do it and, they're delusional. He's actually doing it on both sides of the ball very well. He's been doing it since high school. So it's just more of snap count. If they can understand snap count on offense and defense and that ratio is even and they're monitoring his body every single week, I think it'll probably be one of the most amazing things that has happened in the NFL to understand that you can understand an offensive playbook. You can also understand the defensive playbook and know how to differentiate your mindset when you're going out on the field, but also understanding, too, the secrets of the other side of the ball. And I think that's where he comes into play, where he can really show himself out. And just from the highlights that I've seen and the practices that I've seen, he's playing at another level. And I just think because he's getting so much information, he's able to apply it on both sides. And he's able to fail fast and understand what works and what doesn't work. And it'll just be interesting and fun to see. But, I know he's having fun. I think it's great for the organization. And, we'll see. This might be the template that every other team uses because it's a copycat league. And, if he has success, watch other teams start looking for guys like Travis Hunter.
Absolutely. So, last question here, and I'm glad that we tapped into it. Mentioning about coaching. I mean, I got to ask you because it's got to be one of the best feelings, personally, to where you left everything on the field for 8 years to still be on the field and then to share your experience from a coaching aspect. I think it's fantastic. I always am always give, the best of luck to a lot of these former players being in the coaching roles because it's so important because you're training and you're preparing the next generation of these players. I mean, how's that feeling got to be like for you? Like when you first started and where you are now, to see these kids grow. I mean, I mean, at least for our young audiences here, I mean, to have that experience, like what that's got to be like, and then what the expectation is for what they carry to then move forward the minute that they become adults and they're out there and they're giving it their all as the next future players.
Yeah, for me, I never wanted to coach. By the way, I just saw the demanding hours outside of practice and being in the building because I was in there for 15 hours. So I could only imagine coaches. Some coaches sleep in their office. Some coaches not getting home till midnight. They got to be back in the building at 4 a.m. And just thinking about that as a player, like, man, I could never have that life. And I don't. It's just the hours are still long. I'm still putting in long hours, but it's not long hours for me. And it's more so understanding, man, I have all this information of just knowledge, of not just X's and O's, because X's and O's is like the most basic. It's more of insight. It's more of communication, understanding how to be a leader, what your team needs, how to practice, how to meet, how to prepare, what to watch on film, and giving that advice from the top level. It's, for me, it's very gratifying because I know I'm able to break it down in a way where I can teach them. And not everybody knows how to do that. They only know how to do it from their perspective as a player. I've had so many different perspectives, whether it's Bill Parcells, Ralph Friedgen, Doug Peterson, Chip Kelly, Lou Anarumo, Al Harris, Lou Adams, Kevin Core. I could go on and on. Mike Nolan. I got Jim Schwartz. There's so many coaches that I've talked to and had conversations with about how we need to do certain things as a unit and how that's going to affect the other side of the ball, how that's going to affect the game, talking about situations. And it's just something that's not taught at the high school level as much. And it's not the coach's fault. They only know what they only know. And as you get up in higher levels, obviously the exposure enhances. And, for me to be able to play as long as I did, it was more so because I leaned on my coach's insight. What do I need to do better? What things can I do to make my teammates better? And, you apply it immediately. That's what allows you to be better. And when you're able to understand what you do on the field and off the field, then you start understanding how football teaches a lot about life and how you can be disciplined, how you can be focused, how you need to just understand how to do the things right every single day, no matter how hard they are. That is what allows you to be successful. That's why you see the guys like Aaron Donald, you see guys like Darrelle Revis, the Tom Brady's. People think they just get out of bed and they're just athletic. It takes practice. You have to understand your technique. You have to understand your limitations. You have to understand what you need to do to overcome those limitations. You have to know how to push your limits all the time. And you have to know also too that when you do fail, learn from it. It's not the place that you're going to stay. You have so much more potential ahead of you. And those are the things that I like to give back to those kids because the gap between being great and then just being legendary is not that much. And it comes down to the most simple things. It's not being 1,000-yard receiver. It's how you got those 1,000 yards. It's not being a quarterback that throws for 4,000 yards. It's how you got those 4,000 yards. And when you think about it that way, what are the things that you are doing daily? What habits are you creating to make sure that when the lights are the brightest, you're performing and everybody sees it as just another routine play? But for you, this has been countless reps of you always working until you can never get it wrong. And when you teach them that way, it's like the light bulb comes on and they start fulfilling their potential. And, Ralph Friedgen, like I was mentioning before, potential will get you beat. And if you're always resting on what you could be, you'll never really amount to it because you'll always just be complacent. It's always going to be there, but you're never going to want to work to get there. And just in today with college football, kids want everything instant. They want it right now. They want to do a little bit of work for right now. And, when you break it down and let them see, hey, this is what you need to do to be successful, you're going to reap the benefits because you really put in the time to do it.
Absolutely, man. And listen, best of the knowledge there and the experiences. I mean, I'm always get excited to when, I see these kids and they put in the work ethic and at the same time, they're learning a lot from their peers and they're learning from a lot of their mentors. And what you're doing, man, is absolutely just, it's so inspiring for a lot of kids. And at the same time, it's preparing them, up and in for life. So I wish the best of luck for you in this journey, man. And it's just incredible. Nolan, really just an absolute pleasure having you up and onto the show and giving your insights, man. Appreciate you for stopping on by. Take care of yourself, and let's see how this NFL season really pans out. It's going to be really exciting up from here, my man.
Yeah, I think it will be. Thank you for having me on the show, Jake.
Absolutely, man. Take care of yourself.
Take care.